All right. Let's do this. Hey, Denise.
Let us do it.
Welcome to Let's Be Family podcast. Thanks for being here. That's not even the camera that we're on. All right, go for it.
Hey, guys.
Yeah. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us. We've had a long and soul-searching conversation about our use of the word like. And I'm just going to say it out loud so that we can try to stop saying the word like so much.
We are aware that our likes are not liking.
We're from the generation where it's normal to say like.
Exactly.
But it becomes excessive. And I don't like when it becomes excessive.
Yeah. I don't know how to stop it, per se.
That's why I'm just saying it out loud.
Just saying it, yeah. Sometimes.
We should have a counter,
That's
like you said.
I said maybe we need to have a counter and just kind of make it like a joke. So every time we say like, you know, like the little tab goes up, like ding.
That was like 4 you just did just there.
Oh,
So
you see?
We're gonna
We
max
might be
out
in
the
the
counter.
hundreds today.
We got them, yeah.
Or example, I don't know. It's hard to find words that are similar to like.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I did that?
I see.
Anyway.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So I just figured maybe if we say it out loud,
Yeah.
maybe we'll be more conscious of it for at least the first 5 minutes of the podcast, and then we'll forget.
Exactly. Let's try this.
All right. So you know what I just can't deal with, though, Denise?
Okay, what's that?
I can't deal with all this Halloween stuff. October, I think today's the 18th at the time we're recording this podcast. So right around the corner.
One is too commercial. Two, it definitely has to do with the fact that obviously we don't believe in death. And let's just be reminded that that's what it is, dealing with the death. Because you got death people and demons and witches and skulls and all that has to do with death. And I just don't think, no matter how you try to spin it, at the end of the day, it's still the same thing.
Yeah. A few houses down, there's this house, and they've got a big witch, ugly looking witch, and she's holding a dead puppy or something.
No, it's a monkey. I actually looked at it today when I was doing my walk.
It's a monkey.
I was like trying to figure out the scene, like what is happening here. There's a lot of stuff happening there. Yeah, it's a monkey.
Is that better or worse?
I don't know. I feel like that's worse. Like where's PETA? Where are the animal lovers like protesting?
Yeah, that's what we need.
Exactly.
We need PETA around here.
Like, how come they're not getting canceled about that? just kidding.
But yeah, so I mean, I guess if you had to eat a monkey or a puppy, anyway, that's I wouldn't want it. I'm saying, what would you rather eat, a monkey or a puppy?
Why would you have to eat it? Let them eat it.
Well, that witch is cooking them down the street.
For you? I mean, I'm not invited. Right. I'm not coming to the table to eat.
But she's a witch, and she's got this monkey apparently.
Let's say
and she's holding it over her cauldron. And then there's 3 other smaller witches behind her with their wispy clothes on or whatever. And then there's a dead girl in the tree. Not in the tree, but she's swinging. The girl sitting on a girl sitting on a swing. It looks like Pocahontas. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't know.
I mean,
she just has long hair in one of those dusty old dresses.
It looks to me like they took a Pocahontas statue or something and costume and made it
dirty,
dead.
No, I don't know. Probably.
And then there's another dead person on the floor next to the tree.
If that wasn't enough, they need another dead person.
So I'm just like, all right, I can kind of wrap my head around. I get it. Like, I was a kid once, and the trick-or-treating thing had a lure to it because it was spend time with your friends and get some candy and stuff like that. I can understand kids wanting to be into it. I don't understand adults that are decorating their property with witches and dead people.
Some people really like it. Some people are really into it.
But I don't understand. So there's a Christmas season, right?
Yes.
I don't understand the Halloween season.
No.
If you want to have this one day where you dress up and you get candy and whatever, like I still don't get it personally.
Why does it have to be on that day though? I mean, go get dress up, have a party, give some people some candy.
Sure.
Like it doesn't have to be Halloween.
Sure, but what I'm saying is, like, even if we gave them that one day, I don't understand how it's turned into a whole season of Halloween where everywhere you go,
it's called sales. You know?
I get why they do it. I get it.
I remember a lot of people like are really into the Beetlejuice movie, and a lot of people do the memorabilia of it. Or there's another movie, is it The Dead Bride or something like that? Like the little skeleton guy with or Nightmare. Oh
yeah, the Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah. But so they sell like memorabilia of that stuff. Like at least where I work, not here, but where I used to work in Alabama during this season. That's when they bring the whole shebang stuff. And I remember, like in my mind, I was like, people are gonna buy this stuff. And to my surprise, like a lot of people come in, and there was people that religiously looked at that display, like waiting for it to come out on sale because it's expensive right off the bat. But still, I remember this lady like coming in even once it was on sale, and she dropped at least like $200 and all this stuff, like t-shirts, just like sculptures and jewelry and like whatever you could imagine, it was there.
Yeah, and then you got that ugly stuff on your clothes.
Like
that's
really?
what I don't understand. Like why do I want Beetlejuice's face on my t-shirt?
It's just not my. It's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
And I think the main thing is not even like about the character. It's just as a believer, I just cannot agree with it. I understand a lot of churches use this as a time to evangelize or do outreach and try to redeem the situation, but let's be honest, I don't think we're doing a good job. Sure. Because it's just you're doing exactly the same thing.
It's funny how all the stuff that we do to replace Halloween, it's the exact same.
It's a little ridiculous.
Trunk or treat instead of trick or treat, and then instead of going to houses, we go to cars. But it's the same. To me, it's the same thing. I don't really see any difference.
It's an interesting season to navigate, for sure.
I understand churches wanting to do something else. I fully am in support of on October 31st having something else, having an alternative. I think it's cool when churches do alternatives like that. So we know that this is a night where a lot of people are out and they're celebrating, even though the intention of most people is not to celebrate the dead and to celebrate darkness. It's what the festival, that's what the thing is about, is what is behind the scenes there. So I like when churches do something that's an alternative. Like, hey, come hang out here. Let's do this, especially with youth and kids and stuff like that.
With the youths?
The youths.
It's always good to take care of the youths.
Did you say youths? Yeah. So...
Sorry.
That's a great movie. Anyway, what was I saying?
It's
so
good.
having alternatives, it's awesome. It's fun. But yeah, I just think it's funny. And I'm not saying they're wrong or not. I'm just saying I think it's funny that most of the alternatives that we come up with, they're usually the same thing. We might call it a harvest party.
Right.
Where we dress up.
Yeah, but then somebody can say like, what are you harvesting? Oh, snap.
We're harvesting
nothing. Souls?
I mean,
oh snap!
That'd be good if we were. No, it'd be good if we were harvesting souls.
In all fairness, let me just say this: I am not an American. I am Mexican. I was born and raised in Mexico, and Halloween in Mexico is not a big deal, or at least it wasn't something that we celebrated or that we saw. We saw it as an American festivity, like other countries celebrated and did all that. In Mexico, the biggest thing, and now I think it's become more, or it kind of has always been like this cultural thing about El Día de los Muertos, which is actually November. It's not even in October. And now I think now is like kind of overlapping now because now with commercialization and the internet and everything and things, the technology, well, now I guess they have kind of jumped in the wagon with other, nations too.
Sure.
And they just say, hey, let's do the same Halloween, and then we'll still celebrate El Día de los Muertos.
November 1st,
so it's
Day of the Dead, which is really it's kind of worse because it's actually doing the thing that Halloween was founded on. So so the festival of Samhain, it was a Celtic holiday, Celtic tradition, and the idea behind it, I believe it's supposed to be the end of summer, transition into winter. But the idea behind it is that it's this day, or maybe I don't know if it's just the day or if it's the season, but whatever that is, that they believe that the veil or whatever between the world of the dead and the world of the living is blurred, or it's lighter than usual, and so it's a day where you can kind of commemorate and remember the dead, and there's kind of like some crossover and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd have no problem with people remembering those that have left us or those that are no longer with us. But I don't think you need to do a whole celebration of it. I do have a problem with people trying to talk to the dead, because it's clear that that's something that is demonic. That is something that the enemy plays with our emotions or our attachment to our loved ones to attract us to things that open doors into the spiritual realm that could be very, very dangerous.
Yeah, well said.
So that is not something funny. It's not something cute. It's not demure. No, it's something very important. And I think, and I was bringing up the whole thing of like, I was born and raised in a different culture and a different environment where we have a certain sense of respect or a certain sense of understanding that there is a spiritual realm that is very real and it's very palpable and constant. And it doesn't need to be on a specific time of the year. Like, you are aware of it. And there are things that you don't really go seeking after those things, because I grew up in a culture where mysticism was mixed with religion. I guess maybe there's more of an awareness of that in us, like historically, like we know for a fact that, Indians use, because they believe in mysticism and they believed in, the power of earth and things like that, that are in that spiritual realm.
Yes.
We don't mess with things.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, in a lot of other countries outside of the United States, and really outside of the Western world in a lot of respects, but particularly outside of the United States, you go to other countries and there's a higher, I'm going to just use the word respect or knowledge for those, spiritual things, demonic things.
Yeah.
And so what happens is there's a lot more, I think a lot of people are a lot more versed or they've had experiences with the demonic realm in other countries than we have in America. Because I think a lot of times in America, I mean, at the end of the day, the devil's just looking to deceive people and get people in any way that he can. I don't think the devil, people say that Halloween is the devil's day. I don't think the devil cares whether it's October 31st or if it's that far, or if it's Christmas Day. Like, I don't think he cares. He's just looking for whatever he can use to, try to deceive people and try to, get a foothold into somebody's life or something like that. I think in the United States, what we have is we kind of have the opposite. We have such a lack of respect or awareness for the things that are actually real in the realm of the spirit, because we've created, we create these movies where all this stuff is very commonplace. We get comfortable with it. We create the costumes. We have little 4-year-old girls dressing up as witches and, all this kind of stuff. We create things like, Harry Potter, and I'm not saying it's whatever. I'm not making a political stance on Harry Potter or anything like that. I'm just saying We create things where we create a comfortability with
Yes.
that darkness to where we don't even think about it. We don't even recognize the realness of it or the effect that it has. And I think that the enemy, again, he's just kind of looking for the path of least resistance to get a
Yes.
foothold into somebody's life. So whether he does it in the form of, voodoo and witchcraft in a very like blatant way,
Yes.
or if he's doing it through our engagement with it to the extent that we just think that it's commonplace and we don't even realize the effect that it might be having in our lives. I think at the end of the day, he looks at it as a win.
In a way, it's been shown as a statistic that countries that have more wealth or that have a certain level of stability and prosperity seem to have a tendency to have less of an awareness or less of a concern or acknowledgement of spiritual things.
Right.
Because when you live in countries where there's more lack or where there's more poverty or you can recognize strongholds in countries that that they have to do with social climate, things that are happening that are affecting or that are oppressing the nation. And a lot of people don't become aware of those when everything they need is provided for them quickly and there's no struggle per se. And I'm not minimizing the struggles that people in America have, and I'm not putting at a higher value the struggles that other countries have. Each country is different and everything, but I do think that it is something that we do need to be aware of. And it's when we glamorize things that are not of God, we fall into the trap of slowly but surely becoming tolerant, and we get to a place where our stand can become a lot more iffy.
Yeah.
I don't even think that's a word, but
no, iffy works. Iffy works.
And it's not intentional. I truly believe that it is not intentional. It's just something that tends to happen because, like you say, you become familiar with, like dressing up. Or let me tell you, have this big peep about Halloween, where we like it many times. Ladies use this holiday as an opportunity to hoochify themselves.
Come on. Yeah.
And I don't get it. And again, I feel like it's part of that glamorization of ideas that, tell us like, oh, it's all in fun and jokes. Like, I'm going to go get a custom of a nurse, naughty nurse or hooker. Like, and we try to glamorize and we forget that there are women out there that are really like, this is the reality. This is their everyday. And it's not, are they making those choices? Yes. Many of them are in those paths, in that path of life, because they were either brought into it from a young age. Many of them don't know how to get out. They don't have people around them to help them. Some of them have tried, and it's a very sensitive. I don't think it's like a one size fits all fix or way to help people who are in those lifestyles. Yeah. But when we glamorize it to that point where we become desensitized to what really is happening to that person and what they really live in their everyday, what are we doing?
So there's often an argument, even with people within the church. There's a lot of disagreement on the matter of Halloween and whether or not we should celebrate Halloween, or whether or not we should allow our kids to trick or treat and participate, whether or not whatever, right? And so a lot of people, I know a lot of Christians that look at Halloween as something that is really innocent in terms of the way that we're participating in it, because we're not into it for the darkness of it. We're just into it for, you know, the candy, the trick-or-treating. Kids want to dress up and it's funny. We don't let them dress up in witches and warlocks and stuff. They might be a bunny or a ninja or a samurai or, you know, whatever. And so
Mario Bros.
Yeah. Yeah. So we look at it as something that's innocent in our approach to it.
Yes.
But so let's just talk about the question. So what do you think? Do we think that people that are saved should or should not, you know, participate in Halloween?
My stance is not going to be like, oh, if you're doing this and you're not a Christian, because I think that's judgmental. That's passing judgment, and I don't know your heart, and I'm not God to judge your heart. So, no.
And I'm glad you said that, because that is what you'll see on social media. Yeah. It's, you cannot call yourself a Christian and do this. Whether it's participate in Halloween, go trick-or-treating, if it's you can't vote this way, you can't, you know, whatever. And they
using
put these
that
blanket
argument,
statements.
Using that argument for anything that is not what you believe, it's judgment. And that is not something that God agrees with. Because then the intention of your heart is to condemn the person. And that's not good. That's not ever the intention of God. That brings division. That brings a spirit of like bickering. It brings strife. And that is not what God is after. You really have to make sure that your heart is in the right place. And I will probably say 99.99% of the time, there's something happening in the heart of that person, and that's why they're standing in that statement of judgment. I do think that we do need to take these opportunities to talk to our children and to make sure that their spirituality is up to par. Because I believe, and this is something that I think we have been brought to conviction by God to evaluate what level of spirituality do our children have? How much word do they actually have? What understanding of who God is in their life do they have? Because let's be honest, many times our children go to church and they just get entertained. They just get entertained by religiosity, but they're not actually growing in the spirit. They're not actually maturing in the things of God. So as parents, we can't just say, oh, I'm going to take my child to church, send them to Sunday school, and then trust that that's going to take care of everything.
Right.
Like, no.
Let me tell you what happened to me. I just thought about this. When I was a kid, I grew up in a Christian home, and I remember for a few years of my life getting into Halloween, getting into trick-or-treating and dressing up, going out with my friends in the neighborhood. It was great. It was fun. It was just something we did that was fun. But I remember when I was probably getting into my maybe early teenage years, I might have been 12. I don't remember. But I remember, because it was around that season of my life where I can remember getting, really, really serious about God in my own personal life. And I remember coming to the conviction on my own. My parents let me go trick-or-treating, even though my mom didn't like Halloween. She wasn't into it. Look, they weren't going to let me put a witch out on the front porch, I'll tell you that. But it was this, they allowed me to do it because again, my mom saw it as something that I was just doing with my friends and whatever. But I remember coming to a conviction on my own that, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore, because I feel like even though my intention is not anything to do with darkness and with the devil and with any of this other spiritual stuff, that's not my intention at all. I'm not celebrating that stuff. For me, it just felt like, even though I'm not intentionally celebrating that, I feel like I'm still identifying with what it is, with what's going on behind the scenes. Again, that's not my intention. But I just had a personal conviction that I came to on my own. It wasn't forced on me. It wasn't anything. It was just, I came to that personal conviction, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then I remember a couple of years going by, and some friends of mine, I remember being in, you know, middle school and maybe even early high school, and friends of mine every year, they'd be like, hey man, come trick or treating with us. We always do this and we do that and we have a lot of fun. And the way they described it sounded great. Sounded like a lot of fun. And I always just would say, no, I'm not going to do it this year. You know, I'm not into it. And I would have, I mean, a certain level of peer pressure on it. Just do this with us. Like, how come you're not going to do this with us? And it's not a big deal. We're not, you know, we're just getting It's like, yeah, I get it. But I feel like I have this personal conviction that I just don't want to put myself in that place where I feel like I'm identifying with the holiday, even though, you know, it's not my intention to get into all the stuff behind it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's that idea of like, oh, see how close I can get to it. Like how close I get to it without like getting contaminated or tainted. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like, do you really want to be living like that? Mm-hmm. And it's not easy. It definitely is not easy because like you said, it's very subtle how it's fun and friends are doing it and this and that. Yeah, friends are doing it. That's what, you know, addicts do that. People who are addicted to drugs start that way. Curiosity draws you in to do things that you really don't want to do. Or did you know in your heart of heart, this is not for me. This is not, it just doesn't feel right. And again, I do think it's important for us to teach our kids to develop their own conviction while we're guiding them. We definitely shouldn't impose things. I do think that up to a certain age, you do have to have more weight in your convictions being the guiding line for your children, because yet your children are yet to develop the understanding to make that choice for themselves. Yes. I do believe that that's important. But there's a certain age where you begin to see them mature and you have given them enough information. You have given them enough tools to make the right decisions. I'm not saying your decisions, the right decisions, because there are times where their decisions are the right decision, even when they go against what you believe that they should be doing. Right. So when you do that, then you can give them some more guidance to decide for themselves and do about, you know, by conviction. But you're doing this throughout their whole life to make sure that you are keeping tabs. So like, where are they spiritually?
Yes, it's good.
Do they actually have the fundamentals that they need in order to have a sustainable, strong relationship with God? Or all I have given them is religion. And religion is not sustainable.
That's right.
It really is about them developing a relationship with God, learning to hear the voice of God for themselves, and learning to be guided by the word of God and the voice of God as they're making decisions. That doesn't mean that they'll never make a mistake. No, because we do. Like, I mean, we're adults, but we're still making mistakes like that too. I do think that, however, as adults, we will be held more there will be a higher level of responsibility that we will be accountable for than children.
Yeah, and I like what you said there, that up to a certain age with your kids, and that's different for every family and based on your kid's maturity level and stuff, I think. But up to a certain age, you kind of impose certain restrictions, and you might say, yeah, no, we're not doing trick-or-treating because of this. But use it as an opportunity to teach and to instruct. And then ideally, you'd get to a point with your kids where, you know, maybe it becomes their decision, where they say, yeah, you know what, even if you gave them the option, well, look, you know how I feel about Halloween because I've told you about it. You know, we've talked about it every year. It comes up. It comes up every year. Can I go trick or treating this year? And it's like, well, we have the conversation and we look at it, and we you know, I just think we look at it. I'm not saying we do this perfectly by any means, but we just look at it and we say. But I think getting to a point where your kids are getting, you know, just a little bit older, and you can say, well, let me leave the decision up to you. Yeah. You know, here's the reasons why we personally, you know, why we don't agree with this holiday, and you can look at it on the one hand and like what we've been talking about and say, well, I'm not doing it for that, so it's innocent in my case, and that might be true. And if you don't have a personal conviction about it, then, you know, as long as, again, as you said, if you're strong in the Lord and you know who you are, then probably it's not going to really affect you.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you're weak in your faith,
Yeah.
you can be affected by things. I think we could maybe apply this, I don't know, like when Paul is talking in Romans about eating food that's been sacrificed to idols. And he says, look, if this causes your brother to stumble because you're eating meat that was purchased in this market that had previously been sacrificed to an idol, because that's the, you know, it's cheaper to get your meat that way.
Yeah.
If you're eating this meat, you understand you're at a certain level in your faith where you know, like, that idol is nothing. That idol has nothing on God. You have the Spirit of God living inside of you. So it's not going to affect you if you're strong in your faith. But for your brother in Christ, he doesn't differentiate and say this is not a brother. This brother's outside of the family of God just because their faith is weaker. He says, no, he's your brother in Christ. Yeah. His faith is not as strong as yours. And so if watching you eat that meat is going to affect him and it's going to get in his way and cause him to stumble, it's better just not to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's at the end of the day, it's about love. And so there is this reality of, you know, some people have stronger faith in terms of how they've grown in the Lord.
Yeah.
And so it's, or I shouldn't even say, I don't even like the way that I said that, stronger faith, but some people are stronger in their faith. I'd rather say it that way than others, because they've allowed the word of God to really penetrate into their heart. They know their identity. They know who God is. And at the end of the day, they're probably not going to be affected by this spiritual thing. Yeah. Because the light that's shining through their life is overpowering that darkness. That's, you know.
And to say that is not to say that they are better than you are. No, I think it's maturity as believers for us to recognize when there are things that could be or could have some sort of influence in us in not the best way, and for us to put that boundary to say, you know what, this is not for me, not right now, like it's just not. And is it an unpopular opinion? I think so. Yeah, I think it is an unpopular opinion when you tell your kids, like, oh no, you can't. I had somebody who asked me yesterday. I was at the school, Josiah's school, and somebody asked me, like, oh, are you ready for Halloween? And I was like, no, I mean, I don't prepare for Halloween. It's really something that I don't celebrate. And the first words out of this person was like, oh, is that like like your personal choice, or is it because of religion? Mm-hmm. You know, and obviously sparked a conversation. We had a really good conversation. But I think it's important for us to change that mindset to think that this is just a religious stand.
Yes.
It's not. It has nothing to do with religion when you look at it. It's about your conviction. And there's a difference between you making decisions because of your conviction of what you believe than when you're making decisions just because you're following a religion or you're following a trend or you're following a philosophy. It's different. Yeah. It's very different, because I'm not trying to impose what I believe on anybody else, but I'm not going to let other people either make me feel bad about my conviction. I can share it, and if people want to hear it, this is what I stand for, or this is how I feel about this. Now, I'm not telling you that you should be following this, because I recognize that you're not there.
Yes.
So that's what I mean by it doesn't make a person better or a believer who's stronger in faith about certain things doesn't make that person more spiritual or closer to God or better than you, because and that's a row or a line that we have to be cautious to walk on, because the enemy will even try to use that against someone's life and someone's heart.
Absolutely.
But the thought that comes to your mind, and one of, I think, our favorite questions, and we have adopted that as a very important question that we asked ourselves, in general, when it comes to anything, when we're trying to make financial decisions, when we're trying to make family decisions, when I'm trying to make personal decisions, is the question, what is God saying to me about this? And I think we've tried to install that in our kids, to ask them that. What do you think God is saying about that? What is he telling you? Because it is important for us to recognize that each and every one of us are different.
Yeah.
And God speaks to us based on who we are and our purpose. So it cannot be the same thing for everybody. We would want it to, but God is not a mass-produced answer God. He has tailor-made answers for each and every one of us based on where our heart is and where our spirituality is, where our walk with him is. And it's something that we have to be aware of at all times when we're interacting with people, when we're going about our jobs, or where we're going about our life.
Yes.
We are in this world, but we are not of this world. And there is a proper way for us to stand for the kingdom and to stand for the principles of the Word of God, while we're still giving grace people, and while we're still showing compassion, and we are inviting others into knowing God as well for themselves.
Yeah, that's good.
You thought I was going to say something else?
I thought you were going to say something else. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't know if this, I'm trying to think if this might be seen as hypocritical or not, but I know, so partially for me as well on this, I mean, I have, and you have, we have this personal conviction. I think we've always had it as long as we've had kids and had to think about it. We've had the personal conviction that we just don't want to participate in Halloween.
Yes. Not by choice. So because we do make this differentiation, and I don't know if this is exactly what you're trying to say, but so because, for example, I'm going to put myself for example.
Is the fact that we're pastors as well.
Yeah.
I was going to tie that into this.
Go ahead, you can tie that.
So what I was going to say is that because it's something that we don't get up every year and teach on why you shouldn't celebrate Halloween.
Right.
But if somebody in my church were to ask me, do you think we should celebrate Halloween? I would probably take that same approach of what we were talking about a second ago, kind of say, well, look, I'm not going to tell you yes or no, but let's look at it.
Yeah.
Let's look at what Halloween is. What are the roots in it? And I know even on that, people get weird and people start talking about, well, the roots of Christmas are pagan and the roots of Easter are pagan. And it's like, okay, right. I get it that when those holidays, like if you trace those holidays back, like before Christ, then we can see that there were festivals that were celebrated that were devoted to other deities and all of that. But in what we've done with those holidays is we've taken the holiday, or maybe it's the season or whatever it is, we've taken it and like we've made it something else. Like we've taken it and we've, if I could use this word, redeemed it. We've taken it and we've made it so that Christmas is not a pagan holiday that like we do the things that they were doing at the pagan holiday, but we do it with a different focus. No, it's like it's not what it used to be. We use Christmas to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Right. We use Easter to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus.
Right.
And we use it, for gifts and all that kind of stuff as well. Right. But, hopefully we're not like reflecting back on the pagan ideals and whatever of what was involved in it. It's a different thing because we have not done that with Halloween. We haven't taken Halloween and said, well, we're just going to take the date, October 31st, and we're going to just use that date and we're going to use it for something different. It's we don't. We take it and we do the exact same thing.
Right.
And again, the intent might not be there for it, but I just don't think that, the same argument holds up for Halloween, Christmas, Easter, whatever. If you're a Christian, I know Christians that don't celebrate Christmas because of that.
Right.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
I think if you don't want to celebrate Christmas because you have this conviction that because of the roots of it, you don't want to be a part of it, fine.
That's yours.
I mean, you can celebrate the birth of Jesus whenever you want. You know, you can celebrate if Easter gets to you. We don't even call it Easter. We call it Resurrection Sunday because that's what we make it about. We want to celebrate. You can celebrate the resurrection of Jesus 365 days a year.
Yeah, exactly.
But I still like the fact that there's a particular Sunday of the year where people in general are a little bit more
thoughtful,
thinking about it already, to bring out the truth of it in even greater way than maybe what we do on a normal Sunday. Like, let's really focus in on the resurrection of Jesus today and what that means for all of our lives. Yeah. So anyway, I rabbit trailed, but the point is, I don't even know where was I going with that.
Yeah, I mean, as pastors, like, we do have to set an example. So we've had this conversation with our kids, and I think there's been times where, I mean, their attitude sucks about it. To be quite honest, you know, it's they at least Elijah at times, like, he's been very verbal about, like, yeah, just because you guys are pastors, like, I have to deal with this, or I have to, and you know, at that moment, like, he's just like, whatever, I don't care, this is just so unfair, and he's just being in his feelings about it. Sure. And then, but then later on, I mean, I don't try to lecture him at the moment at all, because I recognize, hey, I get it. I was a pastor's kid too for a season, and I get it. Yeah. They were choices my parents did when they were, you know, in charge of the children, and I didn't like it, but I had to follow suit, you know? Yeah. So, but then later on, you know, he comes back, and then he kind of thinks about it, and I trust and believe that God speaks to him in his heart too, and then his attitude changes, and he's like, you know what, it really is not that big of a deal. Yeah. It's fine. Yeah. So it's one of those things that you have to deal with, and it's never perfect. I think that sometimes we make that mistake, and I think sometimes people may have the wrong perception that just because you are in ministry and your kids know that you're in ministry, that your children are not perfect. And I think that that's always been a problem. I know a lot of PKs and missionary kids that had terrible childhood. Yes. You know, because we set up such a high standard for them, or we expect them to almost be perfect by the choice that their parents have made. And we don't recognize, hey, they are growing up. They have to mature on their own. And in that same sense, like, I feel like we have the same statement about, like, will our kids be in ministry when they grow up? Will they become pastors? Right. Honestly, I don't know. And I honestly don't feel like I have an understanding from God of what he wants my children to do. But I'm not going to impose something that I believe that they should be doing just because the choice I made. Yeah. So I think it's the same principle. They are kids at the end of the day. They are around people that are not Christians. They're not bubble wrapped by Christianity. Yes. They are not born with a supernatural understanding of the things of God and follow suit all the time. No, they are also dealing with this tug of war that we all have when it comes to our spirit and our flesh. And what are the things of God? And how do I pursue the things of God? And is this against what my flesh wants, and is this against what I want? But is it this good or bad? We all are dealing with that, whether they are children or teenagers or adults. I think even like people in their like elderly age will still be dealing with the same, because we are human. We haven't gotten there to the place where we've got it all figured out. Yes. And I don't think God expects us to have it all figured out, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, so what I would, just coming back to this, because I left it dangling, what I would say to somebody in the church who had that question, should I let my kids celebrate Halloween? Should I let them dress up? Should I let them go out trick-or-treating or whatever? I would do the same thing. I wouldn't impose, you know, my conviction about it on them. Yeah. But I would say, well, let's evaluate what are the benefits to doing it, and then what are the potential downsides, and what is the general spirit of this holiday? Yeah. You know, because can you see the fact that shrouding this holiday, I mean, you go in Sam's Club, you go in Walmart, you go in, where were we yesterday? We were in Party City. That was a nightmare. It was literally walking into a nightmare. You walk in and it's just ghouls
it's just
and
like
gross.
in front of your face, just like, no. It's being sold to you like in such an appealing way and in such a way that is like, this is what we're doing now, so jump on the train and do it.
Yeah. And again, it's just kind of creating that comfort and that proximity with this stuff that is clearly demonic in nature. And again, you might not be internalizing that. That might not be your focus, but at the same time, you might not recognize that it is having more of an effect on you than you think. So the other thing that happens in this season is all of the, like, everything is about scary movies and all this kind of stuff everywhere.
Before you move on, for those that are wondering why we were at Party City, I was trying to buy some fake beer because our son is in theater and he just happens to need for one of his plays a fake beer. So you go there. Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yep. That's where you go. That's where you go. And we expected it, we expected it to be like that. But so I would almost take the same kind of approach with a church member that I would take with what we were talking about earlier with our kids in terms of their age. But with a church member, I would say I might recommend to somebody who's maybe they're a brand new believer, maybe they're a brand new Christian, they want to know if they should celebrate Halloween or not. Again, I wouldn't give them an order from the Lord.
Yes, exactly.
But I would probably say, hey, you know what? You're just coming into the faith and you're just coming into the family of God. My recommendation to you would be straight up, like, just don't do it this year and then see what happens. And then next year reevaluate, just because I might see somebody who is, again, if they're weaker in faith, and I don't, again, that's not a negative thing. It's just the reality that if you are brand new to the family of God, you might not have enough word in you yet to really stand on. Yeah. And so spiritual things that, again, that you don't even recognize, they can affect you in ways that you're unaware of. Yeah. And then, maybe you're just participating in Halloween and whatever. You don't think anything of it. But then like a week later, you've got a crappy attitude and you don't know where it's coming from. But maybe there's just some foothold that the enemy got in. I'm not saying we're like these fragile spiritual beings that around every corner we've got to be watching out for demons. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, like, intentionally subjecting yourself to something where you may not have enough of a foundation of the truth of God's word in you yet. I would just be very, very careful with that. And then beyond that, if you feel very strong in your faith and you don't have a personal conviction about it, I would just, as you said, I would ask the Lord, just say, hey, God, is this something that I should do, should not do, whatever. See how the Holy Spirit leads you in this thing. You know?
And I would say, like, I mean, if the point is for you to, your kid wants to dress up, and you're thinking about, they want to collect candy, I would say, well, make it a time to hang out with your child. Mm-hmm. Take your child, go buy some candy at the store. Mm-hmm. Take it home and do something. If your kids like to bake, maybe bake that night or do something else. You can try to find a different activity or something else that you can do that will still give you that time with your kids, that will still make your kid feel like, I didn't miss out because I wasn't outside doing anything. My parents were just home and I just stay home and I was bored. Like, find other things.
Create your own tradition.
Yeah, make a tradition that day. If you take the attention off of that, trust me, your kid's not even gonna really care about going out trick-or-treating if your kid gets to hang out with you and do something else that was like fun. I know, at least like from our experience with our kids, if it was something that was like school oriented, it was organized by the school and it was like and somehow mandatory or part of their grade, I have no issue, like it's something that they have to do. Like, I get it, they can participate, but there's still going to be a boundary being set on that participation. Good. And I'm not, but willingly and purposely, that's a big difference. Mm-hmm. So I think that sometimes we just kind of have to get creative and, like you said, be led of the Spirit. Go out for some ice cream that afternoon. And you can see all the people that are dressed up. Maybe do your own costume contest, with your child. Like, oh, tell me which one's the best. Who wore it better? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's different things you can do. Make it a game night. Stay with your kids. Have, play. Yeah. Say, hey, we're going to play video games tonight. We're going to have some snacks, have ice cream, and just create something else.
Yeah. And don't let it become a fearful thing.
Yes, definitely.
Guard against that too, because we can go so far the opposite direction.
Right.
That we feel like, I can't leave my house because there's don't make it a fearful thing either.
No.
Just be a normal person,
Yeah.
Like whatever that looks like.
It's just another day.
But yeah, I like what you said. I think that's a really great thing. I would say the same thing to somebody who maybe has a conviction against Christmas or something like that they feel like they don't want to, because of the festivals of the past and all of that, they don't want to do that, or they don't want to participate because, like, Charlie Brown, it's too commercialized or whatever. but to create your own tradition around it with your family, like, that would be, I think that's a really good way to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't demonize it, in other words. Don't.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to do that. You don't want to draw more attention to it by trying to stay away from it, and you don't want to allow it to either cause like strife or division in your household. So, you definitely and I think it's important with couples, like, to get in the same page about it too, because maybe your spouse is really into it. Or maybe your spouse is not from the same upbringing that you are. So you do need to have those conversations to say, okay, how we compromise in this? What are we going to do? Are we going to do this? Are we not going to do that? And having an open heart to hear and make those decisions. And I think when you do that, there's no wrong way of doing it, because I think that's a way where you allowed God to speak to you to make that decision, and that is ultimately, I would say, what God desires for you. That you submit to Him, that you follow His leading, even if you feel uncertainty, or you feel like it's not perfectly, because He's not looking for perfection. And be thoughtful about being compassionate to people and being compassionate to your family as you're walking through these things.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and for anybody that might say that on the Halloween thing, it's not a big deal. It's just a costume. It's just a decoration. It's just a movie. There's nothing evil about it inherently. There's nothing wrong about it. I mean, just remember, again, I'm not talking about, demonizing everything and looking for demons around every corner, and, because you saw a person in a costume, you're going to be, I'm not talking about getting weird with it, but just pay attention to how the enemy will try to inspire fear through these different things. And a lot of times, like, that's the foothold that he gets into our lives is something that leads us into fear. He'll use that to manipulate and to control. And so there is so much around the Halloween holiday. I think there is just so much of it is just shrouded in fear. It's intentional, it's intentionally more so than normal. I mean, there's a lot of people that are into scary movies and horror movies. It's the adrenaline rush of it, or it's meant to be a distraction. It's something, there's something about, putting yourself into a fearful situation that makes you feel a little bit of a rush, in a similar way that, riding a roller coaster or skydiving or something like that. But some of these movies are just blatantly demonic. Like, they're just blatantly crazy, that they put images in your head that you have a hard time getting out of, starts affecting your sleep for some people, all that kind of stuff. That's just stuff I would really recommend not exposing yourself to. But it is like, around this holiday, around this season, there's just so much of it is just shrouded in fear. And fear is, like, I think, the primary tactic of the enemy. He uses fear, tries to inspire fear in so many different ways. And it's like, why would I want to intentionally expose myself to more fear? I don't need any help, honestly, in terms of fear. I really don't. I've got enough
we do it real
fear
good ourselves,
in my life that I'm like, wanting to fight against as it is. Like, I don't need to expose myself to something that's going to just add more like existential dread in my mind beyond the normal stuff that I'm, fearful about, that I'm, trying to allow the Holy Spirit to clean up in my life as it is. So
yeah, I think it is important for us to be aware of our spirit, like take care of our spiritual person. And I don't mean to sound weird the way I said it, maybe, but I think it is important to be aware that during that time that there is people who have been deceived by the enemy, who are purposely targeting in the spiritual realm. You know what I mean? Like, they are people that are conjuring things. There are people that are speaking things over like neighborhoods, people who believe in voodoo, and they do certain, what do you call it, like rituals and things of that. And it's not to say that you have to be afraid, again, to the point you're making. However, I do think that during those times, I remember my dad, there was this one year where he really was having conviction about it, and he just kind of felt like he put some oil in the post of our house, like right outside our gate, because during the Halloween, like, people will come knocking on the door, so he will just prefer to turn off the light outside the porch so people wouldn't bother us. But I remember one particular year where he was like, you know what, I just feel led of the Lord to do this, and he just put oiled in the post of our home, and he just said, we're just gonna pray here real quick, and he just said, Lord, we just thank you that there's a watch over our home, over our property, and then nothing that the enemy tries to do will come in. We'll set up a boundary, and our home is protected in the name of Jesus. Amen. That's it. So, I mean, that was just a practical thing that he felt led of God to do. Did it make any difference? I mean, I might not be able to tell you like specifically, tangibly, but I do believe that to some extent it probably did. Because again, we do need to be aware that there are people that are being influenced by the enemy to do the works of the enemy.
Yes.
Just as much as we follow the Lord and are pressed in our hearts to do the work of the Lord.
Yeah.
So it's important to be aware of that.
Yeah. So as we wrap up here, back to that witch down the street that I brought up. So there's this witch. Apparently, she's trying to cook a dead monkey in her cauldron. And the crazy thing about it is that at nighttime, there's all these creepy lights. They have a whole light thing going on. And then the thing is motion sensitive. And so I'll be running by or walking by at nighttime, and the witch will start talking to me. Yeah. So she'll start talking to me. And the first time it happened, I was like, what? I kept hearing like this sound. It sounded like somebody was whispering behind me. And because I usually have one earbud in as I'm running, so I'm listening to something, so I wasn't hearing it super loud. But as I'm running by, I'm like, what is that? Like, what is that? I kept looking behind me, feeling like somebody's talking. Then I finally realized, like, oh, it's this stupid witch over here. And so, but anyway, it was funny because I realized. So you ever have an experience where you have an experience, you do something, and then like later on, it might be hours later, it might be years later. Like it's literally happening where it's years later. You think back on something and you realize, oh, that's not the way right. that it was. Yeah, that's not the way that came across, or that's not. I was thinking about that totally wrong. You kind of have this realization that dawns on you. Anyway, the other day I was talking to one of our neighbors across the street, and we were just having a conversation. Then I'm leaving. I'm walking back to my house. And so I kind of yelled at him from, maybe 20 feet away or so as I was walking by. I was like, oh, by the way, watch out for that witch down the street. and he's like, he kind of did one of those things where, like you laugh, but you're not really, you're like,
not sure what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, man. Every time I go by there at night, she starts talking to me, and like I was just trying to be kind of funny. Obviously, I'm talking about this fake Halloween witch on this person's lawn.
Display over there.
So then I left, and then later on, it was like a couple days later, I'm thinking about his reaction, and it just dawned on me. I'm like, you know what? He didn't know I was talking about, like, he thought I was talking about a neighbor, probably. Like 90%.
Thought he was talking about a real person.
90%. He thought I was just very rudely calling one of our neighbors a witch because she talks to me when I go by their house. So I think my across the street neighbor has a different opinion of me now than he used to.
It's called situational awareness. Yeah. Sometimes we have to just be thoughtful of
yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's okay. I think, but beyond all that, enjoy this season that you're in with your family. Just try to make the best memories. Love on them. If your kids want candy, I know we're all against sugar, but maybe
we're all against sugar.
But maybe just buy them a little bit of candy for one day, like just I don't know.
Those that brand, is it Lily's? They make M&Ms.
Oh, they're so good.
Yeah, they're really good.
They're sugar-free and
M&Ms.
they're just a little pricey.
They're like $1 million, but
I wouldn't say $1 million that, but
they're probably about 2.5 times the cost
of regular M&Ms. But just try to do your best.
Yeah. Well, love you guys.
Thanks for being here with us today, and just don't forget to subscribe, share, leave us a comment, and we hope to see you next time.
Yeah. See you guys.
Bye.